Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video, and we are finishing up this fantasy football and Madden. We are in the semifinals. Week 15, week 16 will be semifinals, meaning each matchup from week 15 and week 16 will add up to the final total for the matchups, and we'll get into that here in the playoffs. But before we get started, please leave a like down below, comment any suggestions for the channel moving forward, and subscribe if you have not already. Let's get right into the video. Week 15 is finally here for fantasy football in Madden 24, and it's a semifinals, and we have some things to go over before we get right into the matchups here. So, of course, the playoff picture right now, this is for the playoff championships. The Bryce is Right number 1 seed taking on the number 4 seed picket line in head-to-head matchup along Ominous versus How I Met Your Mother, the number 2 and number 3 seeds respectively. The winners with a total tally from the next 2 weeks, that means their matchups for the next 2 weeks will be, a summary basically. So week 15, week 16 will both count for these matchups this week as an additional total against each other, and you'll get that a little bit here in a little bit. But the winners of that will then go to the finals for 17 and 18, since in Madden the bye weeks don't really, the last week doesn't really matter. It just plays a lot. It plays similar to every other week, so don't worry about it like normal fantasy football. So all the starters will be playing no matter what, pretty much. That's how Madden usually works. But again, the losers will then go to a different bracket. So let's say the Bryce is Right and Ominous lose. They'll go and face off each other in a loser's bracket for 3rd and 4th place. And that's how it will be for every bracket going forward. Mid-off, of course, Nakua Matata facing off against number 8 seed, mixing it up. Number 5 seed, Nakua Matata, of course. Number 6 seed, Baskin Dobbins, and number 7 seed, Addison Square Garden. Again, the winners will move on to fight out for that number 5 spot versus the losers, who will lose for, 8 spot. Then we have the Toilet Bowl, the worst of the worst, or who's the best of the worst, really. Hooked on a Thielen, number 9 seed, facing off against Kittle Big Town. Number 10 seed, Smile for the Kamara, facing off against number 11 seed, Crispy Kareem. So here are the matchups officially, kind of breakdown of all the stuff. We already kind of went over them all, but here kind of, is all the matchups. Very similarly matched up. Picket Line and Bryce is Right, 2 of the best teams in the world, or in the league at least. Ominous versus How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother has been fighting tooth and nail to make it to the playoffs, while Ominous has been pretty dominant in their league, especially in the latter half of the season. So we'll see how this kind of shapes up. Ominous definitely does have an advantage here. Mixing it up versus Nakua Matata. Again, Nakua Matata has some advantage here, while Mixing It Up has kind of fought back out a little bit. They were one of the worst teams starting out, and they have gradually grown themselves to be one of the better teams here near the end. So they're in the mid-off right now. They're number 8 seed. They squeezed in. Can they fight for that number 5 spot? Baskin Dobbins versus Addison Square Garden. Very two similar teams, just kind of a mid-off type game for these two. Both have done well. Both have done pretty bad. We'll see how it goes off with this one. Finally, Hooked on a Thielen facing off against Kittle Big Town. Both these teams have been pretty poor in the past for each other, so we'll see how it kind of matches up. Kittle Big Town has been explosive and definitely not the worst team, but Hooked on a Thielen also not the worst team either. They've had explosive moments as well, so we'll see who kind of comes out on top here. Finally, Crispy Kareem facing off against Smile for the Kamara. 2 of the, more semi, kind of teams, Crispy Kareem is technically the worst team, while Smile for the Kamara is the best of the worst currently. So we'll see how they kind of shape up, but both of them pretty still evenly matched up here. But there's not really anything else to go over in terms of, any extra awards or anything. We'll get to that in the final episode. But let's go right into Madden and see how all this shaped up. We are at Madden. We're just going to go over all the big injuries for the next 4 weeks, so the next 3 weeks in this one, since it's already been simulated. So if they're out for 3 weeks, they're pretty much out for the regular season for playoffs. Roshan Johnson's only out for this week, of course. We got Samaje Perine out for the rest of the season. We got, I thought it was Daniel Jones for a minute. MVS is only out for a week. I haven't really looked over all this, to be honest with you. Oh, I did see, nope, not important. DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell, though, are out for the rest of the season, meaning no running backs for the Eagles here for anybody in fantasy. Christian McCaffrey, of course, has been out all season, but he's out for the rest of the playoffs, of course, too. We got Hayden Hurst. He's not currently in. He wasn't drafted. Odell Beckham's only out for 1 more week. Chris Olave's only out for 1 more week. A couple defensive players, which are kind of important for some defenses here. And that is it for the injuries here. So other than that, there was no league transactions, no free agent pickups, no trades or anything like that. Here's kind of all the overhead if you want to look at the news for all the people on the screen. Nothing too big of news here for us, except if you want to see some yardage here easy for the top little running backs. Here are the current standings of all the teams, in case you want to see who's doing well, who's doing not, all that good stuff. We'll look at the schedule real quick, see what the previous, whoops, not the Broncos schedule. We know they do bad. Week 15, here you go. Here's all the scores. We did see a pretty big score from the Chiefs and Patriots, so good for them in doing well. Not good for their defenses, though. Playoff picture, in case you want to see. Boom, bada bing, top rights, Packers and Bucks. In case you're curious, I know I'm covering them up, but I'm not going to move it for them. So there you go there. Moving forward, we're going to look at the stats for the week. Wasn't actually that big of a stellar week for stats. Nothing too important. We'll look at the weekly awards for people who did the best. Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the only notable player there. He did good, just not, like two. I don't think anybody broke 30 points this week, so that was a little bit more of the curious side of things. Oh, if I can ever go up all the way to NFL. Boom, bada bing. We'll look at passing yards. Dak Prescott's leading the pack. Patrick Mahomes not too far behind. Touchdowns, though, both of them doing pretty well. No one else really matching up to their style there. Russell Wilson and Josh Allen all right in that way. Derrick Henry, though, destroying everybody else in yardage. Touchdowns, too. I do see Saquon's got 13 touchdowns. But no one's really broke over 13 or over 1,250 so far. Receiving yards, CeeDee Lamb is dominating, but not as much in the touchdown department. That is Cooper Kupp and Nico Collins down there. I see him. Travis Kelce with 15 touchdowns. He has been doing super well. Actually, I do think he did break 30 points this week. He did really, really well. Christian Kirk also up there, surprisingly enough, as his third receiver. So that's pretty dang good for Christian Kirk. So, man, we got some, low-key little favorites here. And honestly, the point totals going into the first half, basically, of the, semifinals are looking kind of spicy. The results are here, and the first half is quite interesting with all the point totals. Of course, we got all the brackets. We just saw it, so we're not going to worry about that. But first up, we have a 21-point difference. In the middle, you'll see like a different number. It's the difference between the two. Green means they're leading. Red means they're not. Or they're behind. Whoops, let's not spoil it just yet. But Pickett Line and Bryce is right. Not a close matchup so far. Pickett Line did really well. Travis Kelce did break the 30-point mark. Josh Allen did pretty well. Miles Sanders picked it up too. Well, the Bryce is right only had some good performers, not great performers. Rashi Rice and Kyler Murray, just fine. They have to make a 21-point difference in Week 16. Pickett Line right now is leading the pack. Bryce is going to have to hope for a miracle here. 21 points is not easy to make up. While Ominous doesn't have as strong of a lead as, of course, Pickett Line. 17.4 points on How I Met Your Mother. They're both staying in it pretty decently, though. 17.4, though, is hard to make up for How I Met Your Mother, so they're going to have to hope for a bad week for Ominous here. Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Hopkins, all did well. Marquise Brown, Jonathan Taylor, and Justin Jefferson all did pretty well. They just had more consistent players in the mid-range for Ominous. Now, in the mid-offs, mixing up in Nakua Matata. Right now, mixing up is very close, 8 points behind about getting rid of Nakua Matata from the bracket here, or at least from the winner's bracket for this. So it's pretty close matchup. Both of them had some decent performers. We can see how it goes forward. Baskin-Robbins and Madison Square Garden. Right now, it is a slaughter fest. It is very unlikely Madison Square Garden's coming back from a 41.5 deficit. Baskin-Robbins has been one of these teams that's been weirdly good, but also weirdly bad. So it's kind of curious that they, get 41.5 points in the first game, or the first week at least in this whole thing. So we'll see how it goes up. Madison Square Garden is going to have to hope for a real miracle. While, again, Kittle Big Town only has a 17-point lead on Hooked on a Feeling. Kittle Big Town has been one of those performers that's been doing well, but not stupendous. So right now, 17 points seems like a lot, but for both these teams, they can both flunk really, really hard. So we'll see who actually ends up on top here. Then we have Smile for the Kamara and Krispy Kreme with 12.3 point difference. Not that much. I'd say around a 15-point difference is not that much. That's really around that 12-point range. Krispy Kreme's still in this. They got 94 points, so they're going to hope for a little bit more, while Small for the Kamara does have pretty bad depth issues, so they're going to have to hope for all the consistency from their top players here. So this is kind of the current standings for them all right now. We're just kind of curious. I didn't update the points for or breakdowns or anything. That's for regular season only. I mean, at this point, all that matters is what they're playing now. Breakdown doesn't really matter. Nothing really matters because regular season's building up to the playoffs. That's kind of my mindset to it all. Week 16, though, here you go again. Kind of a quick overview of it all for all the point differentials and all that stuff. So let's see what happens. Let's go right into Madden and see where the point totals are kind of going to land up, or the players who did well, who didn't do well. It's going to get close and really spicy here for the championship. Here we are in Madden. No new big, injuries that are going to be affecting. I think Chase Brown from the Bengals got hurt. I do need to clarify that the Eagles running back Rashad Penny is still drafted, so I was mistaken in that way. But nothing new on this screen here. Here's some news and all that good stuff. But we are finally here. We are finally at the end of the semifinals, and we're going to finally see who actually ended up going on top. On screen now, you see all the standings now. We'll go to the schedule of last week. That way you can see roughly how many points. Like last week, there wasn't many points scored in terms of singular players. A couple people like Dak Prescott scored over 30 points technically. So take that as you will. Then if you go over to our stats and awards, we're going to go see who the in-season awards weekly winners are. Dak Prescott, of course, and Joe Burrow, who also scored quite a bit, but I didn't take a look at that before. The leaders in every category so far are Dak Prescott doing pretty well and good touchdown to interception ratio. Aaron Rodgers also really good touchdown to interception ratio. But Dak's doing pretty well. Patrick Mahomes right behind him. Derrick Henry dominating as usual. Nothing too new in the running back department. CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, Christian Kirk, and Justin Jefferson, all kind of leading that offensive ahead. Showing you the playoff berths or the playoff teams currently, just that way you can see the full picture of the league. But this has been crazy. Falcons are in top right corner facing off against Bucks. This has been a crazy week, and some interesting stuff has happened, so we're going to showcase that right here, right now. Who has made it into the finals? It's been a wild ride. Week 16 is in the books, and here are the results. And, man, the Bryce is Right has had a great run, but, man, they lost by a long shot this week. One of their worst weeks so far. Brandon Ayuk was the only one to do well. The quarterbacks didn't step up at all, and they lost by we lost by 58.5 points to our division rival Picket Line. So we are now in the losers bracket, fighting for third place, while Picket Line is going for that championship ring. Very well done. Travis Kelce, Tyler Boyd, all very well done by them. As you see, the first number, so the number kind of like right here, that one and this one, so 136.6 and 99.1 are this week's or week 16's points. The one below it is the grand total, 58.5 points difference. It's unfortunate, but Picket Line will face off against, no surprise here, Ominous is going to the finals by not actually a pretty close margin. How I Met Your Mother actually kept it pretty close. And if you just look at the scores here, the what's it called, right, the Bryce is Right actually scored the worst of the bracket team. So How I Met Your Mother fought valiantly, stayed in it, 14.5 point difference, but Dak Prescott alone couldn't do everything. Ominous had a bunch of people do well, with only a couple people not doing well. So Ominous, welcome to the winners bracket, while How I Met Your Mother and the Bryce is Right will be facing off next week for that third place trophy, that bronze medal. Meanwhile, we have Mixing It Up coming back from a big point deficit, 152.6 points this week, 50 points more than Nakua Matata, taking the lead away from Nakua Matata, going from 8th place, now fighting for 5th. Mixing It Up has made a miraculous comeback here while Nakua Matata has collapsed. This week was not very good for them, while Mixing It Up has had a great week. Baskin Dobbins keeps their lead in pretty good dominating fashion. Points for any notable players on board. Nothing too notable there. Then we have the Hooked on a Thielen fighting and beating Kittle Big Town, kind of coming back from that, I believe, too, because Kittle Big Town had a big collapse, so Hooked on a Thielen exploded a little bit, 30.9 point difference there, and Hooked on a Thielen is now not the worst team. Kittle Big Town is now fighting to be one of the worst teams in the league, but not quite yet, because Krispy Kreme has also lost their matchup, making the 11th and 12th seeded teams going to the loser bowl, the toilet bowl, to see who is fighting to be the 11th, not the worst. 45 point difference here. Smile for the Kamara kind of had a pretty steady lead the whole time. Doing pretty well. Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler doing really well, while multiple people didn't do well, but it is what it is. Hell, here's the brackets. Picket Line and Ominous will face off the number 4 seed and the number 2 seed, while the Bryce is Right and How I Met Your Mother and the number 1 and number 3 seed will face off for the losers bracket. So the Picket Line and Ominous will be 1st and 2nd, and the Bryce is Right and How I Met Your Mother will fight for 3rd, 1st, and 4th. You kind of get the drift here. While Mixing It Up and Baskin Dobbins fighting for that 5th place trophy, looking to be recognized at least a little bit. Mixing It Up versus Baskin Dobbins for 5th and 6th, while Nakua Matata and Madison Square Garden for 7th and 8th. And then you have Hooked on a Thielen and Smile for the Kamara, looking to be the best of the worst for 9th and 10th. And Krispy Kreme and Kittle Big Town are fighting for 11th and 12th. So that is your playoff brackets going into week 17 and 18. Next week, we find it all. Or next episode, I should say. I don't know when exactly it's going to be released. But next episode, we find out who wins it all. Stay tuned for more Madden 24 fantasy football. See you guys later, guys. See you guys later, guys. We'll go with it. Little epilogue here. I forgot to not showcase the 2 weeks. So here's week 1 on the first bracket here. You can see all the scores of everybody there. See how I labeled them and all that good stuff. Highlighted again are the ones that are represented for the points. And then here's the second line here. And I have not moved over the bracket just yet in terms of all the scores. If you want to pause and just make sure you're getting seeing all of them if you're playing along or whatever else, there you go on screen. Thank you guys for watching.